be talking a little bit about the anatomy of rivers and streams today, which is an important thing to do because when we have questions in our field journal that we're writing down and we're looking at life science, we need to ask ourselves, okay, what makes animals want to live there? How do they have to adapt to live in that environment? So it's important sometimes to answer our own questions. We have to stop looking at the animal and kind of look at the bigger picture and say, what is this environment doing to influence their experience? So, looking at rivers and streams, there's a lot to think about with the anatomy. Think about the way that different animals come to the river and stream and what is their purpose. For larger animals like moose or elk or bears in Utah, they might want a calmer piece of the river where they can sip water. Maybe bears are fishing. Maybe an animal needs to cross. They might need to cross at a place that isn't so high. A moose might not care because they're so tall and they love the water, but we have to think about it. For a fish, they're going to be looking at the river and say, okay, I need a place where I can have oxygen, where the water is constantly moving, but also I'm exhausted because fishing is hard or swimming is hard. And so they might have to be on the side of the river for a time to recharge and rest in calmer water. So it's a dynamic place to be. So we're going to go through this anatomy a little bit. So starting at the top of our river, we have a shallow area with rocks in the water's path. So the water is meandering around to get through. And this is shallow water. And when I say shallow water, it could be to the knee, it could be less. Maybe these rocks are exposed out of the water. This is called a riffle. Okay. And as the riffle comes down into the river, there might be a bit of a rush down and increase of speed, and that is called a run. If there is a big obstacle in the river, like a big boulder that causes the water to swing around, and then maybe there's a large bank and it swirls in, this is called an eddy. There's a big eddy on the Provo River at Vivian Park. There's a huge boulder there. Many locals call it the swimming hole, and you can jump in and it's crazy deep. But that is an example of an eddy. That large cement block that is in the water there causes a big pool to be there. And speaking of pools, when there are large areas where the water is pretty calm and it gets a lot deeper, that is called a pool. It could be really fast, but that deeper water is called a pool. Okay. Something else that's really interesting that we need to look at when we're looking at rivers and streams is where currents converge, where they come together. So where the water is moving very, very fast, and on the edge where it's moving very, very slow, this is totally what everything's about at the Provo River. The middle is very, very fast and it's a lot deeper, and then you can kind of stand on the edges if you're a fly fisherman in much calmer water. And in that case, you are looking for seams, where fast water is meeting slow water. Okay. And then down at the edge of our river, we might enter into a cycle again of more shallow water with debris. Could be, like is said here in Utah, could be logs even here too, not just rocks. And this is called tail out. So again, this is some stream anatomy for you guys to look for. Look for these structures, look for the animals that might be here. You might see a fish resting on the edge of a seam, or in an eddy recharging, or they might be zooming down a run. Look for the animals that are going to be here and use the anatomy of the stream to help you understand the environment a little bit better.
All right, guys, welcome back. We are doing our activity today where we're going out on a river and trying to identify the different parts of the river. So Sarah taught us some of those parts today, and we can stand here and we can see a lot of the parts from here actually. So this is a really cool spot. We're here in Vivian Park. We're on the Provo River. From here, you can see that giant rock over there. That rock is creating some really cool effects in the river. So further up the river, it's a little bit more shallow. You can see the rocks underneath a lot better, but then it starts to get deep and it starts to run for a really long time. It's called a run. And as it moves, it starts to build up momentum. And then when it hits this big old rock, it hits the rock and it sends it spinning to the side. So you can actually see the little swirls a little bit in the water. If you're next to, it's called an eddy. If you're next to one of those, you can see the way that the water swirls off of this rock here and creates a little pool. So if you were to swim, if you were one of these kayakers or tubers, if you were to swim over this way, you would feel the current pulling you, and then you would kind of swing into the pool over here because of the momentum that it built up. And also you can see kind of like the shallow parts, the deeper parts where the rocks are, where it's a little bit deeper. So go out to a river, see what you can spot. Even if you are able to go out and do maybe some tubing or kayaking or canoeing, that'd be super, super cool. Let us know. Otherwise, go walk along the Provo River, go up the canyon, any of those places, and see which parts of the river you can identify. But other than that, guys, we will see you all next week.